Welcome back. We're going to continue factoring, and our next lesson is on factoring when a is more than 1. So there's different things that come into play. Some of you found the shortcut for when a was 1, but when we're looking when a is more than 1, that shortcut will not work. If we're looking at multiplying this back together, remember, we're foiling, distributing, putting it in the table, however it is that you love to multiply. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 1 is 3. If we combine our like terms, 2x plus 3x is 5x. Well, what's different? Well, some of you noticed when a was 1, we could just look at the c term, in this case 3, and find two numbers that multiplied to c and added to your b. Well, that's not ever going to be the case when our first term is not 1. That's why we need to go back to our method that we learned with factoring by grouping. And a reminder that we always start by finding our greatest common factor, if there is one. There's not always going to be a greatest common factor, and that's okay. But we always want to start by finding our greatest common factor. So let's take a look at this first example. Checking for an overall common factor, we have 2, 5, and 2. Well, there's no common factor besides 1 for that. X squared x and no x, so I can't take an x out. Remember, our overall greatest common factor, we're trying to reduce our numbers. Since we don't have one, we're starting with our a times c. 2 times 2 is 4. Two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 5 are 4 and 1. Remember, the order you write those in will not matter. Bring down our first term. We have 2x squared. This is a positive 4, so plus 4x. A positive 1, so plus 1x. Bring down that last term. We now have 4 terms. 4 terms means we split this in half and finish our factoring using factor by grouping. Our common factor of the first 2 terms is 2x. When we pull out or divide by 2x, 2 divided by 2 reduces to 1. 2 x's minus an x leaves us with just x. Plus, 4 divided by 2 is 2. X over x, those reduce out, and there's no x left on that side. Our right side starts with a plus. Our common factor between 1x and 2 is 1. Please remember, when you're factoring by grouping, you must always pull out a greatest common factor, even if it's 1. So I'm writing that 1 down. 1x divided by 1 is x, plus 2 divided by 1 is 2. This point, we check our parentheses and say, do they match? Which they do. They are exactly the same. One of our factors then is x plus 2. Our second factor is the stuff that we pulled out, 2x plus 1. And that is factored form. Letter B. 5, 48, and 20. They do not all have a common factor. And I cannot take an x out of all of them, so I can't reduce that either. A times c, we have 5 times negative 20 is negative 100. The factors of negative 100 that add to positive 48 are negative 2 and positive 50. Negative 2 times 50 is negative 100. Negative 2 plus 50 is positive 48. Bring down 5x squared. Negative 2 makes this a negative 2x. Positive 50 is plus 50x. Remember, we're using this term in the middle because negative 2 and 50 have to add to that, and then bring down the minus 20. Splitting this in half, our common factor on the left side is x or 1x. When we reduce the x out, 5 divided by 1 is 5. 2 x's take out 1x is x. Minus 2 divided by 1 is 2. X, reduce that x out so there's no x left with the 2. Start with plus. On our right side, our common factor with 50x and 20 is 10. 50x divided by 10 is 5x, minus 20 divided by 10 is 2. Check our parentheses. Those are exactly the same. So 5x minus 2 is one of our factors. We pulled out x plus 10 for our other factor. And that is factored form. Letter C. 2, 19, and 24 do not have a common factor. 2 times 24 is 48. Two numbers that multiply to positive 48 and add to positive 19 are going to be positive 3 and positive 16. 3 times 16 is 48. 3 plus 16 is 19. Bring down our 2x squared. That's a positive 3, so plus 3x. Positive 16 means plus 16x, and bring down that 24. Split these in half. Greatest common factor on the left side is x. We divide by x. 2 divided by 1 is 2. X squared, take out x to the first, is x, plus 3 divided by 1 is 3. X to the first over x to the first leaves us with no x there. Our right side starts with plus. Common factor between 16x and 24 is 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2x, plus 24 divided by x is 3. 2x plus 3 is our common term. And our other factor that we pulled out is x plus 8. And this is factored form. Letter D. We'll start with that one. 2, 13, and 20 have no greatest common factor for all three. I can't pull out any x's either because they don't all three have one. 2 times 20 is positive 40. The factors of positive 40 that add to negative 13 are going to be negative 8 and negative 5. Negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. Negative 8 plus negative 5 is negative 13. Bring down 2x squared minus 8x minus 5x. Bring down that plus 20. We now have 4 terms, so we are factoring by grouping. Split it in half. Our common factor of the left side is 2x. Pulling out 2x, dividing by 2x. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared over x to the first is x, minus 8 divided by 2 is 4. X to the first over x to the first. 1 minus 1 is 0. There is no x left. Our right side starts with a minus. And our common factor between 5x and 20 is 5. So we're dividing by negative 5. Remember to be very careful with that because that's going to change our signs. Negative 5x divided by negative 5 is positive 1x. Positive 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. X minus 4 is our common term. And we pulled out 2x minus 5 for our other factor. And this is factored form. Letter E. 6, 11, and 5 do not have an overall common factor. I cannot take x out of them because they all three don't have an x. So we're straight to 6 times 5 is positive 30. The factors of positive 30 that add to positive 11 are 6 and 5. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 plus 5 is 11. Bring down our 6x squared. This is a positive 6x, a positive 5x, and bring down our 5. We have 4 terms here. Splitting it in half for factoring by grouping. Our common factor on the left side is 6x. 6x squared divided by 6x is x, plus 6 divided by 6 is 1, x to the first and x to the first. 1 minus 1 is 0, so there's no x left. Our right side starts with addition. Our common factor between 5x and 5 is 5. 5x divided by 5 is 1x, plus 5 divided by 5 is 1. X plus 1 is common. That's our new common term in one of our factors. We pulled out 6x plus 5. 6x plus 5 is our other factor. And that is factored form. Letter F. We want to try to start with a positive A term. And right now, we have a negative 2. I'm going to make my common factor then. 2, 9, and 56 don't have an overall common factor, but I am going to divide everything by negative 1. By doing that, I make negative 2x squared divided by negative 1 positive 2x squared, and that gives me a positive A term. Negative 9x divided by negative 1 is positive 9x. Positive 56 divided by negative 1 is negative 56. Just makes it a little bit easier when we're factoring if our A term is 1. 2 times negative 56 is negative 112. Remember, we're ignoring this 1 in the front for right now. We'll bring it back at the end. We need the factors of negative 112 that add to positive 9. And that's going to be 16 and negative 7. 16 times negative 7 is negative 112. And 16 plus negative 7 is positive 9. Bring down our 2x squared. That's a positive 16x, a negative 7x, and bring down negative 56. We now have 4 terms to do factoring by grouping. Our common factor on that left side is 2x. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared over x to the first is x to the first, plus 16 divided by 2 is 8. X to the first over x to the first. 1 minus 1 is 0. There is no x still there. Our right side starts with subtraction. Common factor with 7x and 56 is 7. Remember, we're dividing by negative 7. Negative 7x divided by negative 7 is positive 1. Negative 56 divided by negative 7 is positive 8. Our x plus 8s are like terms, and so x plus 8 is one of our factors. We pulled out 2x minus 7 for our other factor. Remember, we have to go back to the beginning and grab that negative 1 that we divided by to start with, and then all 3 of those parts are a factored form. Example G. 10, 49, and 18 do not have a common factor beside 1. However, again, our A term is negative and we're trying to avoid that. So my first step is going to be dividing everything by negative 1. And remember, anytime I'm dividing, I have to make sure it goes on the outside of a set of parentheses as my overall common factor. Negative 10x squared divided by negative 1 is positive 10x squared. Positive 49 divided by negative 1 is negative 49x. And then negative 18 divided by negative 1 is positive 18. Now we can do 10 times 18 is 180. The factors of positive 180 that add to negative 49 are negative 4 and negative 45. Negative times a negative is a positive 180. Negative 4 plus negative 45 is negative 49. Remember, for right now, we're leaving this negative 1 alone on the outside. Bring down our 10x squared. That's a minus 4x, minus 45x. Bring down the plus 18. We now have 4 terms, so we are factoring by grouping. Split that in half. Our common factor on the left side is 2x. Ten divided by 2 is 5. X squared over x to the first is x to the first. Minus 4 divided by 2 is 2. X to the first and x to the first is x to the 0, no x there. Subtraction. Our common factor with 45x and 18 is 9. And remember, because of the subtraction, we're dividing by negative 9. Negative 45 divided by negative 9 is positive 5x. Positive 18 divided by negative 9 is negative 2. We check these, make sure that the parentheses are the same. They are. That is our first factor. We pulled out 2x minus 9. That's our second factor. And now we come back to the beginning where we pulled out that negative 1 and bring that back to our answer. Example H. 15, 160, and 100. Well, they end in 5s and 0s, so I know I can divide by 5. So I'm going to take a greatest common factor of 5 out of each of those. When I do, I'm left with 3x squared plus 32x plus 20. At this point, remember, we're ignoring the 5 in the front until the end. We're inside the parentheses. 3 times 20 is 60. The factors of positive 60 that add to 32 are 30 and 2. Positive 30 times positive 2 is positive 60. Positive 30 plus 2 is 32. Bring down the 3x squared plus 30x plus 2x. Bring down the positive 20. We now have 4 terms to factor by grouping. Our common factor on the left side is 3x. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X squared over x to the first is x. Plus 30 divided by 3 is 10. X over x reduces out. Our right side starts with plus. 2x and 20 have a common factor of 2. 2x divided by 2 is 1x. Plus 20 divided by 2 is 10. Check our parentheses to make sure they're exactly the same, and they are. X plus 10 then is one of our factors. We pulled out 3x plus 2. That's our other factor. And then we got to bring back that GCF we started out with and have our final factored answer. Please do you try 1 and 2, and we'll see you next class. Thank you.